the craving is at a very deep level. And this is what the Buddha was explaining as well. So what we're talking about is seeking. So we need to ask the question is, why does the mind seek, right? If the mind itself is completely lacks nothing, right, then why does it seek? So this continuity of thoughts creates this illusion of the self, right, or the ego, to be precise. And it's that continuity of thoughts that we become addicted to because of the linkage of thoughts, this continuity, this thought stream that becomes ourselves, in air quotes, is what we become addicted to. Mm-hmm. And this habituation we have to link the thoughts and to follow this thought stream that creates this sense of person that we think we are, where we drag the one thought out and we stretch it right out and we say, this is who I am, this is how I think, this is my perspective of the world. And it's like, no, you're only linking thoughts. It's only a continuity of thoughts that's creating this sense of ego. And so what we have to then do is think about then what causes the linkage, right? Before we look at solutions. And so why does our mind need to link thoughts together? Because in the end, essentially our mind lacks nothing. It lacks nothing. That's the power of the mind. But we've succumbed to this habit.
I don't think we are aware of that. We forget or never knew about it.
No, of course. Well, like you mentioned with the West and their studies of thoughts themselves, this is kind of not considered, what you and I are talking about, because it's you have to have a different perspective of consciousness itself, a different perspective of how thoughts arise. Instead of like thoughts that are in this train, what you're doing is actually you're stretching one thought out and you're linking it up with other thoughts and memory and past experiences and so forth and so on. And so a lot of people aren't really studying this from an Eastern perspective as we are doing today. They're studying it more from the cognitive science perspective or neuroscience or psychology, those three disciplines in particular. So what causes the linkage of thought? So we have to really dive into the second noble truth of the Buddha. So the second noble truth is the cause of suffering is craving, right? But craving's kind of an interesting word for the second noble truth, like, because to be more accurate, we should be talking about seeking itself, right? Because what we're talking about is more than physical desire here. Like the craving is at a very deep level, and this is what the Buddha was explaining as well. So what we're talking about is seeking. So we need to ask the question is, why does the mind seek, right? If the mind itself is completely lacks nothing, right, then why does it seek? And so why it does this is because the mind itself is, especially when you have no awareness within yourself, is trying to fix itself and find a secure home. It's trying to solidify itself. And the reason why it does this is because the nature of the mind is empty, spontaneous, and free. That's the nature of our mind. It's empty, spontaneous, and free. But the nature of the way that we think, and the nature of the world itself, and the feedback we're getting from the external world and this and that, is that we ought to fix our mind in a certain perspective. And this is when your mind is conditioned, right? Because you built the house. This is my religion, this is my nationality, my gender, my views on politics. You've got the bricks up, they're strong, they got the steel, the Rio in them, and it's not getting knocked down anytime soon. So the mind is trying to fix itself.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, isn't it? Like you said, nature of mind itself is empty and spontaneous, formless.
Yes.
But because of this immediate environment that we are in, it says something completely different. Yeah. So that let's say what kind of degree you have or what salary a year you make and this and that. So these things came into our life and to judge a value of who you are, so that we're trying to solidify our own self in that accord. That's why I think we get into this endless cycle of feeling empty, because we keep chasing.
Yes.
instead of being content with being like empty and spontaneous and just this formless and this such freedom, there is, if we really try to attain it, then there's such enjoyment in that. But some reason we are very fearful of that state of mind, right? Why? Because it feels so insecure not to have some like a solid idea of who you are because of the society.
Yeah. Well, you said it. You said the chasing, right? Essentially, the seeking to be someone, to fit in a chord. But as you mentioned with emptiness, constantly when the mind has a fixed place, it's not satisfied, it moves on. It's constantly trying to secure itself.
Yeah.
See, we are uncomfortable with the emptiness of our mind. Because we lack the awareness to understand our mind at a deeper level, we constantly go through this process of trying to fix the mind and build this house in our head. But what happens constantly? We always want the next thing, the next thing. We're never really secure with where we're at because it's a bottomless hole.
Yes.
You're trying to fill it's a bottomless pit. The mind is completely empty. You can't build a house for it. You can have all of these conceptual frameworks, all of this conditioning, but you're still going to want that new BMW. You're still going to want the next woman or man. You know what I mean? Like without the awareness and without coming to like the sage's understanding of the unsupported thought, you're constantly going to need the next thing. You're never going to find contentment.
That's it. In that way, I don't think we can ever be satisfied.
No, definitely not.
So that looking for satisfaction in that way itself is wrong.
Yep.
I think.
Yes.
Whereas if you go the other way, complete opposite way, and you try to stay empty and simplify your lifestyle and you desire less, you crave less.
Yes.
And it's not easy, but once you try that, then you get to that stage of that somewhat satisfying, which is the sense of contentment.
Yes. We're uncomfortable with that formless, empty reality of the mind. You know, we're really uncomfortable with it. So we're constantly always trying to fill it up. And again, as you were mentioning about contentment, we feel the need to validate our existence because we're not comfortable with that empty state of mind. So we follow the thoughts, we build this sense of personality, we get the BMW, we get all of these things, but we're never content. But we're constantly in this process of trying to validate our existence. Yeah. But in the end of the day, the process is self-deflating because you can't ever solidify yourself because that's not the nature of the mind.
Exactly. In that way, you never will be able to get rid of the feeling of being like empty, like really the empty feeling, like what life is about. Like when that feeling will never go away unless you stop chasing, stop seeking the next pleasure, next object that you think that might make you happier and things like that. Because once you have it, let's say, once you have that BMW, brand new car, there is that like indescribable empty feeling. Like that empty feeling is completely dissatisfied feeling, you know. And that's what people often don't understand, or they do feel that empty feeling, but they don't know why it is. They don't know why, yes, right? Yes. Because, like I said, that way of looking for satisfaction itself is not correct.
No. Yeah. And we've all bought a car, and after it, we have a bit less money, and then even though we desired it, what happened in the end of the day? You suffer, as the Buddha was teaching. Craving, seeking, I mean, same, right? But it's that habit of seeking, you see. And this is the same with the linkage of thoughts. It's a constant process of seeking, right? It's this habit that we've got our mind into. And this is why the Buddha keeps saying, seeking leads to suffering. As you mentioned with the car, you spend all that money on the car, you got the car, you finally got it. You should be celebrating. Yes. If we live in that reality from the previous perspective, right? But then once we have it, I mean, we're like, oh, I have it now. Like it's and it becomes
what's next?
And it becomes background noise. Yeah, What's next?
Yeah.
What's next, right? Like, oh man, I might get a big exhaust on it, or maybe next year I'll sell this and I'll get a Ferrari or something. You know what I mean? Like, you're already off in the future.
That's right.
So the process of your ego or the self is constantly deferred to some sort of future date.